Hey, what is up, everybody? This is your boy AJTRIP, and welcome to Dak to Shoot, my weekly episode show. We'll talk about what's going on in the world of professional wrestling. We're gonna veer off that just a little bit today. First of all, today is Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody out there. Make sure you watch the NBA All-Star Weekend tonight on NBC and Peacock. Don't want to forget that. And there's also Black History Month. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about some of the WWE Black Firsts. Some of the things that have happened in WWE first for black people, black wrestlers, black performers. Can we do that today? I think we should. And so yeah, I think we want to talk about that, show some shine on it, and give it a little listen. I don't do a lot of these videos about black first and everything like that because sometimes I think um, it's talked about too much. Which is why we should be open and celebrating it. When hopefully Marcus Freeman win the national championship with Notre Dame, he'll be the first black and the first Asian head coach to do that in college football, or at least on the FBS level. So let's go ahead and let's do that, right? So we can celebrate that. Um, but I think sometimes it could be a good footnote, but sometimes we just don't talk about it. But I don't know, for some reason this year I wanted to do something. So that's a better way to do it, right? So what do we have up first to talk about? Ah, yes, the WrestleMania main event, the first black man to main event WrestleMania, first black person, not only person, but man, was Mr. T, and it was at the very first WrestleMania. Now, Mr. T wasn't performing; he was a celebrity, but still, right? That's something to kind of think about, right? So you gotta say, well, if he was the first one, I mean, is the next one something special? Well, it's Lawrence Taylor. He was the first black football player to main event WrestleMania. But it's still I know some people look at it funny, but it is funny. Um, but and this was actually absolutely people shit on WrestleMania 11. WrestleMania 11 I thought it was a pretty decent WrestleMania. You know, they shit on 11 and they shit on 27. And I'm not sure that they should. That might be a video to talk about one day. But obviously, of course, the first black wrestler to main event WrestleMania was The Rock against Stone Cold Steve Austin in WrestleMania 15. First black wrestler. He was, tremendous. Him and Stone Cold main event WrestleMania 3 times, even though the last one wasn't necessarily a main event. Uh, main event. They called it as a main event because it was Steve Austin's last match, and why? And of course, I think we can all, think about that. But yeah, the first black wrestler to wrestle in main event was The Rock. But there was another first when it comes to black main events, and that was the first all black uh, WrestleMania main event. It involved Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Obviously, it also puts down like the first black women to main event WrestleMania as well. Um, and again, for people long time watchers of the channel know that I was calling for Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. I thought that was the better draw. I thought that was the better story um, than that. But I you know, Vince in his later age was very woke. He was better woke in his later age than he was in his earlier age. So I think he very much pushed for the black all black main event on night one of WrestleMania 37. That was 37. Yeah. So So yeah, you get the first all-black main event of WrestleMania between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Now the first all-black main event of NXT was Stand and Deliver on WrestleMania 40 weekend when Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes, they squared off in the main event. And, it was first for NXT, and those two, they showed up and showed out. And I think you could very well see them main eventing a show, you know, again. You know, there are two top stars. They can be two greats of the future. And I would not be surprised if in the next 3 years, these two will be main eventing a show, a premium live event on WWE, because they're incredible. Trick Williams, listen, you know, I gave my personally my most improved. I think I gave it to Dominic Mysterio. Let me check my records. No, I gave it to Trick Williams. Okay, so I was right. This Trick Williams is just, he was just so great last year, and now since he's been called up to the main roster, he's just been even better. And they want him as a heel, but they are probably going to turn him babyface very soon, because he is, you know, he is over with the crowd. The Lemon Pepper Steppers. Last night he said Sami Zayn's breath smelled like 10 pounds of big bouncing booty or whatever the hell he said. So I don't even know, but he is over like Rover with that crowd. And yeah, I don't think he may not be heel for long, too much longer. But yeah, the first all black NXT main event was Trick Williams versus Carmelo Hayes. So then that leads us to another first in NXT, the first black women's champion, which was Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks was the first black women's NXT champion. And Orlando and Moon has won their championship. And did someone else have it? No. No one else has held it. No other black woman has held it yet. But there have been other firsts. When they made the Women's North American Championship, Kelani Jordan was the first black woman to hold the championship, the Women's North American Championship. So, yeah. So then when you talk about first and black women, you got to bring up the first WWE Women's Champion, black women's champion, Jacqueline. She beat Stephanie McMahon for the championship, becoming the first black women's champion, and she was there. She walked so that Sasha Banks could run. There's no doubt about that. And you got to give her a lot of credit. I think a lot of people now are going back and giving her due. She made a lot of mistakes. Not only was she was fighting men before China was. And, you know, before China started doing it in WWE, Jacqueline was doing it on WWF, on WCW. And so, you know, she was a pioneer in so many ways. So, gotta give it up to Jacqueline for that. When you have about first black champions, of course, it's still WWE, and of course the first black WWE champion is The Rock. Now, I'm going to say this here, because there might be some idiots, and you are idiots, that will not say The Rock was the first black champion because he's half black and half Samoan. No, he's Samoan and black. That's what he is. And because he's half black, it means he was the first black champion. Especially if you're going to say that Barack Obama is the first black president, when he's half white, half black, then you've got to say The Rock is the first black champion because he's half black, half Samoan. I don't care if he leans more into his Samoan side than his black side because he grew up around his Samoans. He didn't grow up around his black side of the family. Only his father. From like all the legends and from his TV show, you know, I don't think he grew up around a lot of the black side of his family. He grew up around, and by the way, that was that was more or less the wrestling side, because he was a part of the wrestling business. So that's what he grew up as. So yeah, you probably will if you are mixed and you grew up around one more side than another. Yeah, you might lean more towards of that side when it comes to like how you of your culture and things like that, what you talk about. But that doesn't mean that you just don't see your other side. Of course, he sees his black side. And for anybody to say he doesn't is an idiot. Why? Because he always has white love interests in movies. Why? Because um, he voted for Donald Trump. No, get the fuck out of here. You're a moron. I welcome everybody to this channel. But if you're one of these idiots that thinks that because you're half black, you know you're not black, you don't need to be on this channel, brother or sister. You don't need to be on this channel. You can go. That being said, we celebrate The Rock being the first black champion, and I know some people are like, well, that's how you want it. You know, you did the whole Montreal Screwjob thing again, but it's wrestling. Who cares how it happened? It happened, and he's the first black WWE champion. Now, there are some people who think that this is the first black champion when he's not. Kofi Kingston, but he's the first African-born champion, and that's why they say it like that, because The Rock is the first black champion, the WWE champion. But Kofi Kingston was the first African-born champion, and you got to give him credit for that. Also, shout out to Bobby Lashley and Big E, you know, for then following behind him and becoming WWE champions themselves. And like I just mentioned, with Kamala Hayes and Trick Williams and Javon Evans and Obafemi, we got some talented black guys that, along with Braun Breaker, are going to be dominating the main event scene for years to come. And for those who want to think Triple H is racist, I think you're going to about to see that Triple H is about to lean on those black guys a lot in the next couple of years. I'd bet $10 on that. So yes, Kofi Kingston, the first African-born champion, and which, by the way, I didn't have it. I don't have it up here because I know I don't, because we're gonna talk about Ron Simmons. But let's shout out Big E, who was the first black NXT male champion. So yeah, he might have been the first black champion of NXT of all of NFT. My goodness, of NXT. So shout out to Big E for that. I forgot you, but I remembered you. It was my head, not my heart, brother. But of course, if you're gonna do our first black champions, and this isn't WWE. Yes, I know. Technically, this isn't WWE, but let's shout out Ron Simmons, who, when you're talking about the major organizations, he was the first black champion. Now, there's a lot of talk about Bobo Brazil being the real first black champion, but he didn't accept it, so they don't recognize it, something like that. So, but we'll talk about Bobo Brazil a little bit later. But the first recognized black world champion of the major companies was Ron Simmons in WCW, and it all started with the great Bill Watts, who thought it had been too long and it had been too far along since it happened. So he randomly put a match together between Ron Simmons and Vader, and 1, 2, 3 there, and then for 12 minutes later, a power slam, we've got the first black world champion in Ron Simmons. So, tremendous, and Ron Simmons is just a tremendous athlete, great for this business, an icon. Yeah, and Hillsborough was just talked about. Um, like I said, he apparently he beat Bruno for the NWA championship, but again, he didn't um, accept it, so they didn't. So they didn't acknowledge his title win. That being said, they do acknowledge Brazil being the first U.S. champion of any type of championship. So yeah, that's really really good. That's really really good. And shout out to Brazil for that. He was one of the big pioneers of black wrestlers in the past. And some I think it was BET came out with a top 10 black wrestlers list, and it was somebody who was obviously born, you know, after 1990, because there was the only one who was on the list who had wrestled before the 1990s was Ron Simmons. Everybody else was recent. It was Bianca Belair and they didn't even have The Rock number one. They had Booker T number one. So what a fucking stupid ass list. But yeah, Brazil, the first NWA US champion. But Booker T, like I just mentioned, he was the first WWE Black United States champion when they brought the title back after the whole invasion WCW consolidating championships. They brought it back. Eddie Guerrero was first, and then Booker T won it like a few months later, or somewhere around there. He became the first Black United States champion. And so yeah, Booker T was the first WWE United States champion. But the first Black Intercontinental champion was Ahmed Johnson. 1996, King of the Ring. They're doing the whole androgynous thing with Goldust, and they're having him be, you know, for lack of a better term, queer. And he was everything like that, and they played the whole big black guy scared of, or homophobic type of thing. So it wouldn't fly in today's thing unless they did it with a little bit more sensitivity than it was done back then, because it was so overtly. In fact, apparently they had Ahmed Johnson get knocked out by something, and they had Goldust, quote unquote, revive him with mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and that's what made Ahmed Johnson snap. So much so that I don't know if I should be laughing at this, but when the match starts, Goldust comes out first, and then Ahmed Johnson comes out second, and they used to have these doors and these doormen, and they would open the door for the wrestler. He said, "Fuck that," and he put the door open and just ran to the ring. I mean, it was incredible. But yes, he was the first Black Intercontinental champion. Long line of many Black Intercontinental champions. D'Lo Brown. When the European Championship was around, he was the first Black European champion. He was also the first Eurocontinental champion, despite them wanting to give that to Kurt Angle. No, he held the European and Intercontinental Championship at the same time. I believe he gave the European Championship to Mark Henry. And then Mark would become the European champion that way. But yeah, so yeah, he was the first Black European champion, and D'Lo Brown was truly underrated. He was a great hand, and he was never somebody who was going to be a world champion, more than likely, and at least in like WWE, or and he was never going to be somebody that you would be main eventing shows with, for the most part. But man, he was sometimes, and there's been a lot of talk about the whole Unreal clip where um, Michael Hayes says that about Chelsea Green. She's not, a main event person, but she's the one that helps the main eventers. She's the one that makes them look good, and everybody get that, be in their bonnet because that's what, you know, uh, because you kind of put a ceiling on her, and things like that. But sometimes that's just the way it is. Sometimes you end up being D'Lo Brown. Sometimes you end up being Kofi Kingston. And let's be honest about the Kofi Kingston thing. Let's be honest about that. He's, even him being that champion, right? I mean, you kind of saw it, right? Because after he lost the championship, he went right back into being like the tag team scene, not being a part around the main event, right? So, and you can kind of say that unfortunately with Jey Uso, and that hurts me to say this as a Jey Uso big time fan. Although although I will say they're still trying to keep Jey in the main event mix. Him, not Jimmy, but him is going to be part of a qualifying match Monday on Raw for the Elimination Chamber. So they're still trying to keep him, involved in the singles, something like that. So I kind of like that, but I also think, I also kind of think that if you're going to do that, then they shouldn't be the tag team champions. Although I do wonder what they're doing with that. Many people still are thinking that this is going to lead to a Jey Uso heel turn, and I just don't see it. He is still way too over. Again, as a Jey Uso fan, I will admit that the yeeting is not like it was around this time last year. Last year, everybody in the house was yeeting, and this year you can see that the yeeting is a lot less. It's still a majority of the people, still like 80% of the people are yeeting, but there still are some other people who are just standing there, watching and waiting for the interest to be over. So, admittedly that's saying, but that's neither here nor there. I can get deeper into that, but we're here about the Black first, and D'Lo Brown was the first Black European champion. The first Black ECW champion of any kind, of the original ECW that Paul Heyman held to the one that was revived by WWE. First Black ECW champion was Bobby Lashley. He also went and became one of the WWE champions. So he's a great lesson um, in everything to do with this business. If you watched the Bobby Lashley Stone Cold Steve Austin interview, he was great. He was great. The former Marine or not Marine, but Army soldier and Olympic wrestler or amateur wrestler, man, there's no, how can I say this? If Bobby Lashley isn't world champion material to your company, then your company sucks. I'll put it like that. If Bobby Lashley isn't world champion material in your company, then your company sucks. And he was world champion material in WWE. He's not AEW. I think he may be world champion material there, but who knows? But he was the first Black ECW champion. So, the first all-Black women's tag team, Sasha Banks and Naomi. Now, give Sasha Banks credit. She got a lot of first Black for women. She was the first black women's NXT champion. She was part of the first all-black uh, main event at WrestleMania, first all-black women's main event at WrestleMania. And she was the first black women's tag champion. Remember, she first won it with Bayley, and then she was the first black all-black women's tag team champion, women's tag team champion with her and Naomi. I give Sasha slash Mercedes a lot of grief because I think she comes off as someone who doesn't think her shit stinks. That's just how it comes off to me. That's just how I see it. And I think she thinks she's maybe a lot better than she really is. Again, I think when it comes to the horsewomen, I think she's fourth. Yeah, I think Charlotte's one, Becky's two, Bayley's three, Sasha's fourth on that list. But I think she thinks she's like the best. But you gotta give her credit. She has made her way in this business, and she is a star among stars. She was in that Mandalorian series. They know Sasha Banks. They might know a little bit of Mercedes Moné. I'm not so certain, but they definitely know Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks is an icon, and she's got a lot of first black first in WWE, and being part of the first black all women's champion women's tag team is one of those. But they ran because these boys walked. The Soul Patrol. They were the first black tag team champions. Now, I want to make sure. I don't want to get into the whole thing because I just said you have to call them the first black. You can't call them first African American because Rocky Johnson was born in Canada. He's not American. So you can't say you can't. So even if you feel like out of respect as a white person or another person of another race, maybe just saying that they're the first black tag team is somehow disrespectful. But you can't come the first African American tag team because Rocky Johnson's Canadian. So loophole, you can say it. These were the first black tag team champions in WWE. The Soul Patrol, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, and of course Rocky Johnson's father, The Rock. For those that minute percent of people who did not know, and Tony Atlas was, he was a legend, and did a lot of great things in this business. Made a lot of money. If you watch the Dark Side of the Ring, you got taken advantage of a lot as well. They took him to like a Klan rally. Some people did, and I don't know if it's a rib or if they were really trying to like get him killed, or I just don't know. But all Tony Atlas knew was that he was making money, and he wanted to keep making money. And he was gonna, if somebody was going to tell him that he could make some more money, he was gonna go with them, and that's unfortunate. Yeah, I think he really got taken advantage of during his career. That's unfortunate. A lot of people did back then, especially a lot of black people. So, but yeah, the first all-black tag team was the Soul Patrol. The first black king of the ring, King Mabel. And this happened very quickly. He was the third ever king of the ring. It was Bret Hart. Well, he wasn't really the first, because you could go back to like Harley Race and Harley Race won it, and Randy Savage won it, and Bret Hart won it. So yes, he was a two-time king of the ring winner. But I think when it comes to like actually the King of the Ring tournament, they say Bret's the first. So it's one of those things where it's like recognized first King of the Ring, because it was a premium live event. But yeah, he was the third ever, and that ever king in the ring, and the first black one, Dick Mabel. They wanted to make, and everybody thought that Shawn Michaels was going to win it. Shawn Michaels went out in the first round out of a 15-minute time limit draw. So that shocked the world. But Big Mabel won it, and they wanted to have somebody for Diesel at the SummerSlam, and they were building up Big Mabel for Diesel. So they did that. So he was the first black king in the ring. And last but certainly not least, Daphne LaShawn, aka Aja Smith, whatever you want to call her. She is the first black female referee in the history of WWE. She was in NXT at first, and she moved up to the main roster. She is another pioneer in WWE, and I think there's something that you can say is that, you know, there is a lot of firsts in the wrestling business still to come. When she, I don't know if she's ever been the referee of a main event, premium live event yet. I can't remember. I don't know, but like this last year, Stand and Deliver. They had Trick Williams over filming and Javon Evans in the main event, and then they had the referee who was also black. So it was like a true all black main event. That might happen at some point, where Daphne would be the referee, and the component in the wrestlers in there would be black women or black men as well, and you'll see that, and it will be a cool thing to see. So, Daphne LaShawn, the first black all women's. She's the first black female referee in the history of the WWE. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this kind of run through of the WWE Black First. There were some that I missed. Probably, like I said, I think I missed, Big E being the first black NXT champion. There might be some other things that I missed as well. So if you think I did, put it down in the comment section, because I definitely didn't mean to leave anything out. I was just really just trying to shed some light and give some shine to some people who did some things first as black people in the WWE. So yeah. Once again, like I said with Big E, it's my mind, it's not my heart. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Post your comments down below. Tell me if you did. Tell me if you didn't. Things like that. Again, I say this. I'm not having the argument or the conversation about The Rock. You can have that with the Wall. The Rock is black. Period. Sol Ruca is black. Period. Kiana James is black. Period. So I'm not having that argument about that. But if you have anything else, yes, I'm open to it. Please let me know down in the comment section. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This is your boy AJTRIP signing off. As always, be good to each other, y'all. Be careful out there. And I am out.